Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each episode against each other. And today's episode is One Punch Man Ova episode 12, Puri Puri Prisoner, and the Jailbreaking Prisoners. The episode in a nutshell is a brief reminder of what happened within this episode. So it basically starts with this junkyard TV monster coming and attacking the area nearby the prison, which Pretty Prisoner sees on the TV that he has in his cell, and so he then breaks out of the prison by punching a hole in the wall, and goes to defeat the monster. However, when he defeats the monster, it sends out an electric pulse or something that destroys the power for a brief couple of minutes at the prison, which allows 10 prisoners to escape through the hole in the wall before the power is returned and order is restored by the guards. Of course, being responsible for this, Puri Prisoner then has to go and hunt them down. And we see the prisoners as they kind of huddle inside as they're picked off one by one, as they note this number prisoner didn't return, then this number prisoner didn't return, and they realize that, most likely the boss, which is Puri Prisoner, is coming to find them. Sonic even meets up with Puri Prisoner, but he's an exception because even though he did break out in the wake of Puri Prisoner, he used his own skills to do so. So the Puri Prisoner is willing to leave him alone and is basically just getting the criminals that piggybacked off his success and his breakout and didn't use their own strength to escape. Anyways, the 5 prisoners who are remaining, meet in the place where they've hid out, but actually it was also a place where the Ern Eel, who is one of the sea folk, who had been biding his time to try to get revenge for his people who were destroyed in season 1. He's been hiding out there too, so he goes to attack them, but Puri Prisoner shows up right on time, and basically faces the eel, but well, his fighting style is clothless, and being clothless makes him a pervert, and the eel even gets back up and is like, I just don't want to be defeated by you, so you'll have to kill me because I refuse to be defeated by a pervert, and attacks again, and Puri Prisoner does in fact kill the eel, and of course the inmates who were cheering for the eel are lucky that Puri Prisoner thought that they were cheering for him. And in the end, obviously, they are going to be brought back by the Puri Prisoner. So now that we've been reminded about what happens, it's now time to rank the episode. And as always, we'll be ranking on our 2 ranking lists, the mostly objective ranking list, followed by the personal ranking list. So we start with our mostly objective rank values, and, well, we only have the single episode supporting character introductions, which is the TV Junkyard Monster and the Ern Eel, which makes this a 2 out of 10 episode. And so that brings our mostly objective ranking to Road to Hero, The Murder Case That Is Too Impossible, The Sisters Who Have Too Many Things Happening, The Ninja Who Is Too Complicated, Saitama and the Mediocre Ability Users, Game and Rivals, Bang Who Is Too Overbearing. This episode comes in 8th, Puri Prisoner and the Jailbreaking Prisoners, A Shadow That Snuck Up Too Close, The Pupil Who Is an Extremely Poor Talker, Going Fishing with Middle-Aged Men, and then in last place so far is Genos and Memory Loss. So personally on this episode, once again, I found that it was an enjoyable watch, but there wasn't really anything that made it stand out in any sort of way. Like you have Puri Prisoner watching the news, breaks out, kills a monster. Prisoners break out, huddle around in a room fearfully. Ern Eel attacks. Puri Prisoner shows up, fights unclothed, and then brings them back to the prison. That's all that really happened. Now, I like saying Pretty Pretty Prisoner. I think that's a great name. So that part was enjoyable. Just the actual saying of the title. But like ultimately there wasn't a lot of comedy. It wasn't really even much action, to be honest. There was a little bit of action, but not much. And so, while I didn't think it was terrible, like it's one that I would probably, as always, like I might skip it on a rewatch, to be honest. Once I've ranked them, because it's ranked lower, I probably would skip it. There wouldn't be much reason for me to rewatch it again. Now, I don't think it's the worst episode ever, um, but it was a 2 out of 10. And so that brought my personal rankings to in first, A Shadow That Snuck Up Too Close, Saitama and the Mediocre Ability Users, Road to Hero, The Murder Case That Is Too Impossible, The Sisters Who Have Too Many Things Happening, The Pupil Who Is an Extremely Poor Talker, Genos and Memory Loss, Bang Who Is Too Overbearing, The Ninja Who Is Too Complicated, Puri Puri Prisoner and the Jailbreaking Prisoners is in 10th. Going Fishing with Middle-Aged Men, and then in last place is Game and Rivals. And I do want to point out, this isn't really related to this episode specifically, but much like season 2, the actual season, the OVAs for season 2 also seem to have a lot more of them that don't really include our main characters, Saitama and Genos, which again, I want to stress is very frustrating because I like the main characters. I got interested in the show, season 1, because of the main characters. And while I don't dislike the side characters, I also really like the main characters and would rather they at least get a cameo in every episode, though I do have to admit I also like Sonic, and he did get a cameo in this episode, which is why it's in 10th and not 12th. That, and I also like to say Putty Putty Prisoner because I think that sounds so funny. But the point is, just as a general commentary, season 2 was ultimately very disappointing because it really strayed away from the main characters that I personally have gotten attached to in season 1, and I don't like that I don't get to see them as often, even in the OVAs for season 2. All right, and now that brings us to our final segment, which is our series ranking so far. And reminder, mostly objective ranking, season 1 was 88.33%, season 2 74.17%. The OVAs for so far are 42 out of 130. And then on the personal ranking, we had season 1 at 76.67%, season 2 at 65.83%, and the OVAs so far are at 50 out of 130 with only one episode left. And with that, we've now rewatched and ranked One Punch Man Ova episode 12, Puri Puri Prisoner and the Jailbreaking Prisoners. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.